let me ask this specifically. When if you saw, okay, let's talk about Paul for a second. All right. You would say Paul as an apostle had the gift of healing, could heal at will, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So why did he leave Trophimus sick in Miletus? Why did he tell Timothy to take wine for his stomach ailments? And if you believe he had an affliction in his own flesh, why couldn't he heal himself? If you want us to do those things who allegedly have the gift of healing, then why, Paul didn't seem to live up to your standards.
Well, what you see with the people that he did leave sick, Trophimus and Epaphroditus in Philippians chapter 2, and Timothy, those all were taking place even towards the end of the apostolic age. You're talking about late 50s, early 60s. So the cessationist position is that by that time, you do see a dropping off of miraculous events in the New Testament.
It's the opposite. Acts 28, he heals everyone on the Isle of Malta. The very last chapter of the book of Acts, he heals everybody.
Yeah, and after the book of Acts, Philippians is written, and 1 Timothy is written, and 2 Timothy is written. And
so you're saying that Paul lost. So what about his thorn in the flesh, which was earlier? So you're saying that
regarding the thorn in the flesh, Michael, my position is that the thorn in the flesh was the false teachers in the Corinthian church.
Okay,
I think
I'm good with that.
I could have a physical ailment, but I don't expect. The other thing that, and I'm not speaking for every cessationist here regarding miraculous gifts in the New Testament, but it's my observation and my belief that what you see happening in the New Testament is not only the dropping off of miraculous events. You do have Paul healing people on the island of Malta. That's exactly right, and that I think, I'm not saying that miraculous gifts ceased before Acts 28. I'm saying that miraculous gifts ceased sometime after Acts 28. Miraculous gifts, not God doing supernatural things, but miraculous gifts ceased sometime after Acts 28. I think you do see a dropping off of those events in the New Testament record. You see an explosion of them in the Gospels. You see an explosion of them early in the book of Acts. And then as the book of Acts progresses, you see these things happening less and less as the time goes on. So you get to the end of the 60s, right before 70, late 50s, early 60s, when Paul's being executed. I think that there is a dropping off of those miraculous gifts and no expectation that these should continue, and that people should start up schools of supernatural ministry to show people how to do miracles.
Yeah, well, no expectation. Put aside the reference to school of supernatural ministry. Number one, if you're going to use that evidence, well, baptisms decrease in the book of Acts. You have more baptisms at the beginning and less. So shall we say that baptisms ceased? That's number one. Number two, it is kind of peculiar that as the gift is allegedly slowing down, everyone on the Isle of Malta is healed. Number three, the New Testament tells me that these should be the norm. James 5 doesn't say, oh, by the way, this is going to let up. Praying in faith is going to let up as things go on. Number four, John lives well beyond the time of Paul. So you're saying that John no longer moved in the miraculous. Number five, we've got witnesses from hundreds of years into church history attesting to ongoing miracles, prophecy, tongues, healing, even resurrections of the dead. We know in the 4th century, as Augustine is writing City of God, 4th, 5th century, that he has to revise his teaching because they document over 70 miracles. He has to change his teaching in a 2-year period, documents over 70 miracles. And again, I just go back to the word.
Pastor John, Dr. Brown, Pastor Jim wants to respond.
Well, hang on. Hang on. He's been speaking at length, and I'm barely getting the word in here. So let me just have my say here, okay?
I'm fine. Yeah.
I still go back to the word saying this is the period of the last days. It will cease when we see Jesus face to face. Until then, I have an exhortation which I will follow because I obey God, not man, to earnestly desire the gifts, especially prophecy. And here's the norm. What then shall we say, brothers, when you come together? Each of you has a hymn or a word of instruction, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. Everything must be done so that the church may be built up. If anyone speaks in a tongue, 2 or at the most 3 should speak, etc. So he gives guidelines. Prophets should speak. Everything should be tested. So this should be the norm. Nowhere does the Bible ever change that. So I've got to stay obedient to Scripture, not make some inference from an inference in an inference, but just go with what the Word says.
Pastor Jim.
So, Michael, in one way, we're kind of where we were at when we were in Cincinnati here back in April, where we spent 3.5 hours discussing this, and all of us got to the end of that discussion and felt like we could probably go on for another 3.5 hours of touching on stuff, because what you just brought up there was about 19 different arguments, references from church history and everything under the sun. I'm not a church history buff, so I don't even want to wade into those waters. I'll let Nathan Busenitz answer any of those questions or objections. That's not my wheelhouse at all. So you very well may be saying things that are true there. I can't answer any of that. I'm trying to remember where you started at. The baptisms things, you're right. You do see baptisms dropping off in the record of the book of Acts, but we have commands and natural and right inferences that baptism continued on in the New Testament church, both in church history as well as in teachings of the New Testament. And I don't think that comparing baptism, which is the continuing ordinance of the church given for the entire church age with spiritual gifts, is comparing apples with apples. I think that's it's comparing two different things that are not of the same nature at all.
It's just looking at the phenomenology. You're trying to say, look, things are more in the book of Acts at one point. Well, there's the initial explosion, but all through the book of Acts, it's miraculous. No, it never stops. I go through chapter after chapter after chapter. Do we want to go to the 16th chapter and the miraculous acts that take place, the deliverance and then the earthquake? Do we want to go to the 19th chapter?
That's a supernatural activity. I'm not denying that God does.
Okay, then the 19th chapter where cloths are taken from Paul and the sick are healed and demons leave people. Do you want to go to the 21st chapter where prophecy is still going on? Then you have a change in narrative when it gets back to just on the ground ministry. The sick are still being healed. In other words, that never changes. But again, if I'm just reading the Bible never tells me to stop seeking these things. It never takes back the previous command to earnestly desire the gifts, especially prophecy, which are not tied in with the apostles, but with everybody. And it was never authoritative revelation adding to the Bible. Rather, if a revelation comes to someone who's sitting down, the first speaker should stop. This is God giving insights and different things. It could be words spoken to someone that set them free, that bring a deep healing emotionally from some trauma in the past. It could be something that brings them under conviction. One of my friends, a pastor, there was a service and different prophetic words started coming forth. The next thing, a guy in the service gets up weeping. These are all for me. I'm a practicing homosexual. I need Jesus. And he gets saved. Just like it says in 1 Corinthians 14, that as all prophesy, then someone comes in from the outside, their sins revealed, they fall on their face, saying this is God. So those things do continue.